Main causes: justice. Reasons why: states' rights versus federal government, the Missouri Compromise of 1820, the Kansas-Nebraska Act / Bleeding Kansas, the 1860 election in the South secedes, the Emancipation Proclamation and the Fugitive Slave Act, the Dred Scott case, the Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831, the Louisiana Purchase, and land from the Mexican-American War. States' rights versus federal government. People wanted to make their own decisions about their territory. They wanted to choose if they had slavery or not. Popular sovereignty let the people choose what they wanted when they wanted to choose it. Missouri Compromise. The 36-30 line was something that the government decided on, not the people. This made the Northerners mad because slavery was not allowed at the North at all. The Nebraska Act and Bleeding Kansas. Stephen Douglas wrote a bill that let Kansas and Nebraska choose if they wanted to enter the Union as a slave or free state or states. Stephen Douglas was the senator of Illinois at the time. After the Kansas-Nebraska Act was signed, Kansas became a battleground for slavery. Kansas was supposed to allow slavery, but many people thought that it should not be allowed because of the 36-30 line. That bill clearly stated that all states above that line were non-slave states, and the states below that line were slave states. 1860 election in the South secedes. This ties in because it is all about who is going to win the presidency. Justice is the power, the government, the president. Lincoln won, and that caused the South to secede. The Northerners wanted Lincoln to win, and they had the bigger population, so more people voted for Lincoln. This caused the South to secede because they did not want Lincoln for president, and they were very angry about him getting elected. The Confederate people thought that Lincoln was going to abolish slavery because he was against it. This caused major uproar in the South, and then they seceded. Slave Act and the Emancipation Proclamation. The Fugitive Slave Act made any officer return runaway slaves to their rightful masters, while the Emancipation Proclamation was an order from President Abraham Lincoln freeing all slaves from their masters, if they hadn't already escaped to the North by then. This proves that justice is the main cause because the President put the Emancipation Proclamation out there, and the Fugitive Slave Law enforced all officers. This is justice because it is the government and those who are the people who decided what happened. Dred Scott case. Dred Scott was first a slave to Peter Blau, a plantation owner. Then, after Blau died, he was sent to John Emerson's plantation. John Emerson was a surgeon in the U.S. Army. Emerson soon got reassigned to the state of Illinois, and he took Dred Scott with him. Emerson went to Wisconsin before going back to Missouri. When they arrived in Missouri, John Emerson died, and Dred Scott asked his wife for freedom, and she turned him down. He decided to sue the family for not letting him be free after living with them on free soil for many years, and lost his case in the end. This is justice because the judge decided if Dred Scott was free or not. Turner Rebellion of 1831. Nat Turner was a slave who led a rebellion in Virginia, and it resulted in the deaths of 56 white men. Also, he and many other slaves were sentenced to death afterward. This relates to justice because he was sentenced to death by the judge, who works for the government. Justice is the government and the people in office. From the Mexican-American War. The land from the war consisted of California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, and part of Colorado and New Mexico. It was quite a bit of land, so there was a lot of arguing over what was going to be done with the land. Some people thought that slavery should be allowed in all of the states, and some thought that slavery should not be allowed in any of the states. This relates to justice because the government decided what to do with the land in the end. Louisiana Purchase. The land was bought in 1803 and consisted of 14 states. It was bought from France for approximately $15 million. At the time, Thomas Jefferson was president, and he was in charge of buying the land. He bought the land of Louisiana because he didn't like France and Spain having the power to block American trade access to New Orleans. When he bought the land, the United States had now doubled in size. This is relevant to justice because the president was the one who bought the land, and the president is the biggest part of the government, which is what justice is. Reasons prove that the main cause of the American Civil War is justice. Citations.